The brass key tumbles from weathered fingers clinking against the worn oak desk. Great warriors never truly leave the battlefield. Ethan Reed stands amidst empty cardboard boxes in what was once a family home. Faded rectangles mark where photographs hung for 14 years. The medals from Delta Force operations, 4 tours in Afghanistan, 3 in Iraq, now lie in cardboard boxes alongside divorce papers and court orders restricting access to his children. A dusty Ford F-150 rumbles down an empty road, passing a sign that reads, "Welcome to Oakridge Est, 1872. Autumn leaves scatter in its wake. When his father passed, all Ethan inherited was an abandoned lumber mill, while his step-siblings received millions. The truck stops before a dilapidated wooden building, its weathered sign hanging precariously from rusted chains, Oakridge Mill. Sometimes the greatest legacy isn't what you can see, but what lies hidden beneath. Ethan steps onto creaking floorboards, dust motes dancing in shafts of light, filtering through broken windows. And sometimes the biggest secret is worth $134 million, connected to one of the largest weapons thefts in U.S. military history. The road to Oakridge stretches like a gray ribbon through autumn-painted Pennsylvania hills. Ethan's truck navigates familiar curves, its engine a low rumble against the silence. His hands grip the steering wheel tightly, strong hands calloused from years of military service, now uncertain in their civilian purpose. The dashboard clock reads 2:47 p.m. School will be letting out soon. Oakridge emerges over the horizon, a small town nestled in the valley, once prosperous from the timber industry that gave it its name. Main Street hasn't changed much in 14 years. The same hardware store, the same diner, the same courthouse with its weathered clock tower. American flags hang from storefronts, faded but proud. Ethan parks across from Oakridge Elementary, a brick building standing solid against the afternoon sun, a remnant of 1950s architecture that has outlasted the town's prosperity. A bell rings and children pour through the double doors like water through a broken dam. He spots them immediately. Emma, 10 years old, her chestnut hair catching the sunlight as she walks with careful purpose, a book clutched to her chest. And Ethan Jr., 7, trailing behind his sister, his backpack almost as big as he, his sneakers untied as usual. Ethan steps out of the truck, his military posture unchanged, back straight, shoulders squared, but his eyes betray his nervousness. Emma sees him first. She stops. For a moment, something flickers across her face, recognition, perhaps even joy, but it's quickly replaced by guarded caution. "Dad." Her voice is higher than he remembers. She's grown so much. "Hey, sweetheart," Ethan Jr. spots him and breaks into a run, but Emma catches his sleeve, holding him back. A silent warning. "Mom said you'd be here at 3. Ethan checks his watch. "I'm a little early. Wanted to make sure I didn't miss you." Emma's eyes drift to the truck, assessing it, then back to Ethan. She notices the scar along his forearm, still pink, still healing. "What happened there?" "Just a scratch, nothing serious." A sleek BMW pulls up to the curb. Rebecca Reed, no Rebecca Blackwood now, steps out elegant in business attire that seems out of place in this small town. Behind her, Martin Blackwood emerges from the driver's side. Tall, polished, his suit speaks of city money and influence. Ethan immediately feels underdressed in his faded jeans and flannel shirt. "Ethan, you're early." Rebecca's tone is clipped professional. This is a transaction to her, not a family meeting. "Wanted to make sure I didn't miss them." Martin steps forward, extending his hand. His smile doesn't reach his eyes. "Ethan, good to see you. Heard you're back for good this time." Ethan shakes the offered hand, noting the firm grip, the manicured nails, the expensive watch. "That's the plan." Martin's smile tightens. "Rebecca mentioned you're staying at the Oakridge Motel. Must be quite an adjustment after... Where was it you were last stationed?" "Classified." An awkward silence follows. Emma shifts her weight from one foot to the other. "You have them until 6, Rebecca says, checking her watch. "Not a minute later. They have homework." Ethan nods. "We'll get dinner at Miller's Diner. That okay with you two?" Ethan Jr. nods enthusiastically. Emma gives a non-committal shrug. Martin places his hand on Rebecca's lower back, a subtle gesture of possession. "We should go. I have that conference call at 4. Kids remember what we talked about." The children nod in unison, a practiced response. Ethan wonders what exactly they talked about. Rules for dealing with their damaged father, perhaps. As Rebecca and Martin drive away, Ethan stands with his children on the sidewalk. Three strangers connected by blood, but separated by time. So hungry. The diner hasn't changed. Same red vinyl booths, same black and white checkerboard floor, same smell of coffee and grilled onions. Ethan slides into a booth across from his children. Ethan Jr. immediately grabs a menu, while Emma sits with perfect posture, hands folded on the table. Mom says you just got discharged. Emma says, her blue eyes so like his own, studying him carefully. That's right. Finished my final tour 3 weeks ago. Were you hurt bad? Ethan Jr. asks, looking up from his menu. Ethan considers the question. The physical wounds were the least of it, but how do you explain that to a 7-year-old? Nothing too serious. I'm all healed up now. Is that why you came back? Because you got hurt? Emma's question cuts deeper than she knows. No, honey. I came back because this is home. Because you're here. But you weren't here before. The accusation hangs in the air. The waitress arrives, Doris, who's worked here since Ethan was a boy, saving him from having to answer. Well, look what the wind blew in Ethan Reed, large as life. And these must be your little ones. My, aren't they the spitting image of you? Ethan orders burgers all around. Chocolate shakes for the kids. When Doris leaves, the awkward silence returns. How's school going? A generic question, but he has to start somewhere. Fine, Emma replies. I got an A on my dinosaur project. Ethan Jr. offers, suddenly animated. I made a T-Rex out of cardboard and painted it green. Mrs. Johnson said it was the best one in the class. That's fantastic, buddy. And Emma won the spelling bee last month. She spelled philanthropy. I did not. She mumbles, a hint of pride breaking through her reserve. Smart like your mom, Ethan says, smiling. Grandpa helped me practice, Emma says. He had me spell words every day after school before he got sick. The mention of Harold Reed quiets the table. Ethan feels the familiar ache of grief still fresh. Your grandpa was a good man. Then why did he leave you the old mill and give Uncle Richard and Aunt Catherine everything else? Emma asked, direct and unflinching. Ethan blinks, surprised. You know about that? Mom and Martin were talking about it. They didn't know I was listening. Of course, children absorb everything, especially the things adults try to hide. Sometimes parents make decisions we don't understand, Ethan says carefully. But I'm sure Grandpa had his reasons. Martin said it was because Grandpa was disappointed in you for joining the military instead of taking over the family business. The words sting, but Ethan keeps his expression neutral. Martin doesn't know everything about my relationship with Grandpa. Their food arrives, temporarily halting the conversation. Ethan watches his children eat, noting how Emma cuts her burger in half, before taking a bite, just like Rebecca, while Ethan Jr. dives in messily, ketchup smearing his cheeks. So what are you going to do with the mill? Ethan Jr. asked between bites. I'm not sure yet. I haven't even seen it since I got back. Uncle Richard says it's falling apart, Emma offers. He says it's not worth anything. Maybe, maybe not. Ethan takes a bite of his burger, thinking. Want to come see it with me sometime? Could be an adventure. Ethan Jr.'s eyes light up, but Emma shakes her head. Mom says it's not safe. Too many rusty nails and broken glass. We could make it safe, Ethan suggests. Clean it up together. Why bother, Emma asks. Uncle Richard says you'll probably just sell it anyway. Ethan studies his daughter, wondering when she became so jaded, so adult in her thinking. 10 years old, and already she sees the world through practical eyes. Not everything is about money, Emma. She shrugs, unconvinced. That's not what Martin says. The remainder of their dinner passes with easier conversation. Ethan Jr. recounts a playground adventure involving a frog and the principal's car. Emma reluctantly shares details about her upcoming piano recital. For a brief time, they feel almost like a normal family, but all too soon it's 5:45 p.m. We should head back, Ethan says, paying the bill. Don't want to get you home late. The drive to Rebecca and Martin's house is short, a sprawling colonial on Oakridge Drive, the nicest street in town. Ethan remembers when it was just empty lots for sale. Martin must be doing well. He pulls up to the curb, not daring to use the driveway. Thanks for dinner, Dad, Ethan Jr. says, unbuckling his seatbelt and leaning forward for a hug that Ethan gratefully accepts. See you Saturday? Ethan asks, looking at Emma. She nods. Mom says 10 o'clock. I'll be here at 9:50. A ghost of a smile touches Emma's lips. Bye, Dad. He watches them walk up the manicured lawn to the front door, where Rebecca waits arms crossed. She doesn't wave. Ethan doesn't expect her to. The Oakridge Professional Building stands 4 stories tall, the tallest structure in town built during more prosperous times. Now it houses a collection of insurance agencies, a dental practice, and the law offices of Grant and Associates. Ethan walks through the polished lobby to the elevator, checking his watch. The reading of his father's will is scheduled for 9:00 a.m. It's 8:53. He's cutting it close, but he couldn't face this without first stopping by his father's grave at Oakridge Cemetery. Some conversations can only happen in certain places. The elevator doors open to reveal Walter Grant's office. Tasteful, understated wealth in dark wood and leather. A receptionist directs him to the conference room. They're already waiting. Richard and Catherine Reed sit on one side of the long table, both dressed as if attending a board meeting rather than the distribution of their father's estate. Richard, tall and lean with thinning brown hair, checks his Rolex with undisguised impatience. Catherine, petite but commanding in a tailored black suit, taps manicured fingernails against her leather portfolio. Walter Grant stands as Ethan enters. Ah, Mr. Reed, right on time. Ethan nods, taking a seat opposite his step-siblings. No greetings are exchanged between them. Walter, all in his 60s with silver hair and wire-rimmed glasses, opens a leather binder. Let's begin. We're here for the reading of the last will and testament of Harold Edward Reed. The formal language washes over Ethan as he studies the conference room. Photos of Oakridge's history line the walls. The lumber boom of the 1920s. The mill workers standing proud before freshly cut timber. The town's centennial celebration. In one photo, barely visible in the back row, stands a younger Harold Reed. This town, this legacy ran in his blood. To my son, Richard Joseph Reed, I bequeath my primary residence at 742 Maple Street, valued at approximately $875,000, as well as my investment portfolio currently valued at $3.2 million. Richard's expression doesn't change, but his posture straightens almost imperceptibly. To my daughter, Catherine Elizabeth Reed, I bequeath my lakefront property at Cedar Lake, valued at approximately $1.1 million, as well as the ownership of Reed Enterprises, including all assets and holdings valued at approximately $4.7 million. Catherine allows herself a small, satisfied smile. To my son, Ethan William Reed. Ethan braces himself. I bequeath full ownership of Oakridge Mill, located at 1872 River Road, including all structures, equipment, and the surrounding 20 acres of land. Silence falls over the room. Richard and Catherine exchange glances. Is that all? Ethan clears his throat. Walter adjusts his glasses. The property is valued at approximately $240,000, primarily for the land. The structures are considered to have minimal value due to their condition. I see. Ethan feels a strange hollowness in his chest. He hadn't expected much, but this disparity is stark. There is one additional item, Walter adds, reaching into his briefcase. He withdraws a sealed envelope, aged and slightly yellowed. Your father left specific instructions that this be given to you privately. Ethan takes the envelope. His name is written on the front in his father's distinctive handwriting, strong, decisive strokes. Richard lets out a dry laugh. Well, at least you got something, little brother. More than we expected, honestly. That old mill has been rotting for decades. Richard, Catherine warns, her tone sharp. What we're all thinking it. Dad left him a liability, not an asset. He'll be lucky if the county doesn't condemn it. Ethan pockets the envelope, standing abruptly. If that's all, I should go. Walter nods. There are some papers to sign, but we can do that later if you prefer. I'll come back this afternoon. Ethan needs air, needs space from the suffocating wealth in this room, from the pity in Walter's eyes, from Richard's smug satisfaction. As he reaches the door, Catherine calls after him. Ethan. He pauses but doesn't turn. Father had his reasons. He always did. Her voice holds something almost like compassion. I'm sure he did, Ethan replies and walks out. The motel room is sparse but clean, a double bed with a faded blue coverlet, a small desk, a television at least 10 years old. Ethan sits on the edge of the bed, turning the envelope over in his hands. He breaks the seal carefully and withdraws a single sheet of paper along with something small and metallic that falls onto the bedspread. A key, old brass ornately crafted. The letter is brief, written in the same strong hand as the envelope. Ethan, if you're reading this, I've passed on, and you've just discovered that your inheritance differs significantly from your siblings. This isn't punishment or disappointment. Quite the opposite. The mill holds secrets that only you are equipped to understand. Your military training, your sense of justice, your unwavering integrity. These are why this task falls to you and not to Richard or Catherine. The enclosed key opens more than a door. It opens the truth. Look beneath the foreman's desk in the main office. What you find there will explain everything. Not all treasures glitter sun. Some are measured in truth, not gold. Your father, Harold. Ethan reads the letter twice, then folds it carefully and returns it to the envelope. He studies the key, not a standard door key, but something older, more specialized. Its teeth are intricate, its bow ornately designed with what appears to be an oak leaf pattern. His phone buzzes. A text from Rebecca. Emma forgot her science book at the diner. She needs it for homework tonight. Ethan sighs, pocketing the key and letter. The mill will have to wait. The gravel driveway leading to Oakridge Mill hasn't been maintained in years. Ethan's truck bounces over potholes and around fallen branches, the suspension groaning in protest. The afternoon sun filters through towering oaks and maples, casting dappled shadows across the windshield. As the trees thin out, the mill comes into view. Ethan stops the truck, taking in the sight. Oakridge Mill stands 3 stories tall, its wooden siding weathered to a silvery gray. Once painted red patches of the original color cling stubbornly to protected corners. Most of the windows are broken or boarded up. The loading dock sags dangerously on one side. A faded sign, Oakridge Mill, hangs crookedly above the main entrance. The building should look defeated, abandoned. Instead, it possesses a strange dignity, a monument to craftsmanship that refuses to surrender completely to time. Ethan steps out of the truck, boots crunching on gravel and dead leaves. The air smells of decaying wood and damp earth. Somewhere nearby, a stream gurgles over rocks. The same stream that once powered the mill's water wheel, now long gone. He approaches the main entrance, cautiously testing each step on the wooden porch. The boards creak, but hold his weight. The front door is secured with a heavy padlock, rusted with age. Ethan tries several keys from the ring his father's lawyer provided before finding one that fits. The lock opens with a protesting screech. The door swings inward on reluctant hinges. Inside, dust motes dance in shafts of light that penetrate through broken windows and gaps in the roof. The main floor stretches before him, vast and empty, save for a few abandoned pieces of equipment too large or worthless to salvage. A massive circular saw blade, 4 feet in diameter, leans against one wall, its teeth dulled by time. Conveyor belts hang in tatters. The smell of old wood and machine oil lingers, undercut by the mustiness of decay. Ethan moves carefully through the space, footsteps echoing in the cavernous room. He remembers coming here as a child, watching in awe as logs became lumber under the skilled hands of men who could judge a cut by eye alone, his father among them, moving with purpose and authority. A narrow staircase leads to the second floor. Ethan tests the first step, which holds firm. He ascends slowly, alert for signs of structural weakness. The second floor housed the administrative offices. A long hallway stretches before him, doors on either side. Most stand open, revealing empty rooms with peeling wallpaper and water-stained ceilings. At the end of the hall, a larger office, the foreman's office, his father's office, awaits. The door is closed but unlocked. It opens at his touch. Sunlight streams through a large window, illuminating dust particles that swirl in Ethan's wake. Unlike the other offices, this one isn't completely empty. A massive oak desk dominates the center of the room, its surface bare except for a thick layer of dust. A wooden chair, its leather seat cracked and peeling, sits behind it. Filing cabinets line one wall, their drawers hanging open and empty. Ethan approaches the desk, circling it slowly. He runs his hand along its edge, feeling the quality of the craftsmanship. His father had made this himself. Ethan recognizes the distinctive carved pattern along the edge, the careful joinery at the corners. He kneels down, examining the underside of the desk. At first, he sees nothing unusual, just solid oak construction, the underside of drawers, the knee space where his father would have sat. Then he notices it, a small, discolored rectangle in the wood beneath the center drawer. A panel almost invisible unless you're looking for it, secured with tiny brass hinges. Ethan presses it gently, but it doesn't move. He examines it more closely and discovers a small keyhole disguised within the grain of the wood. The brass key from his father's letter. It fits perfectly. One turn and the panel swings downward, revealing a shallow compartment. Inside lies a small leather-bound book and a folded piece of paper. Ethan removes them carefully, then sits in his father's chair, disturbing years of settled dust. He unfolds the paper first. A map of the mill and surrounding property, hand-drawn with meticulous detail. Certain areas are marked with symbols he doesn't recognize. Numbers and letters are scribbled in the margins, some kind of code. He sets the map aside and opens the leather book. A journal written in his father's distinctive hand. Ethan flips through the pages, scanning entries that span years. The earliest is dated 1990, the most recent just weeks before his father's death. One passage catches his eye. April 17, 2016. R visited today. Pressure to sell is increasing. Claims the land would be perfect for the new development project. Offered 1.2 and far more than the property is worth on paper. He knows something or suspects. The question is how much? C remains silent, but her allegiance has always been to the highest bidder. MB's name came up again. The connections are becoming clearer. The Fort Carson situation remains unresolved after all these years. The weapons were just the beginning. The money trail is what matters now. I've traced it to accounts in Geneva, Cayman, Singapore. All roads lead back to RG Enterprises. The shell within a shell. E needs to know, but not yet. Not until I have all the pieces secured. The mill keeps its secrets well, as do I. Ethan stares at the page, reading it again. Fort Carson, weapons, money trails, shell companies. What had his father been involved in? He flips to another entry. June 30, 2016. The transfer is complete. 134M secured across 7 accounts. Documentation stored in the lower vault. If anything happens to me, E will find it. He has the training, the mind for this kind of puzzle. R and C are too blinded by greed to see what's right in front of them. MB's involvement is deeper than I initially suspected. His connection to that law firm is no coincidence. The same firm that handled the acquisitions in '89. The same partners who disappeared when the investigation began. I've left the trail of breadcrumbs. When the time comes, E will follow them. Truth is his inheritance. The only thing of real value I have to give him. Ethan closes the journal, his mind racing. 134 million. Lower vault. What had his father been involved in? He returns to the map, studying it more carefully. There in the southwest corner of the property, a small square is marked with an X. Beside it in tiny lettering, Phase 1 SU. Ethan gathers the journal and map, tucking them securely into his jacket. He needs to find this Phase 1 location. But first he needs to understand more about what his father had discovered. And there's only one person in town who might have those answers. The Oakridge Veterans Hall occupies a modest building on the edge of town. American flags flank the entrance, gently waving in the late afternoon breeze. Inside, the walls are lined with photographs of local servicemen and women dating back to World War I. Jack Sullivan sits alone at the bar, nursing a glass of whiskey neat. At 72, he remains imposingly fit. Military posture, white hair cropped short, eyes that miss nothing. He watches Ethan's approach in the bar mirror. Thought you might show up sooner or later. His voice is gravel and smoke worn by years and perhaps too much whiskey. Sit down, son. First drink's on me. Ethan takes the stool beside him. Thanks for meeting me, Mr. Sullivan. Jack, your father was Mr. Sullivan to me. I'm just Jack. He signals the bartender. Another whiskey for my friend here. The good stuff. The bartender pours 2 fingers of amber liquid into a glass and slides it toward Ethan. To Harold, Jack says, raising his glass. Finest man I ever served with. They drink. The whiskey burns a path down Ethan's throat. You served together? Ethan asks. Dad never talked much about his military days. Jack's eyes flick to Ethan, assessing. That doesn't surprise me. Some things are better left in the past. Army intelligence attached to special operations in the late '80s. Your father had a mind like a steel trap. Could spot patterns where others saw nothing but chaos. Ethan digests this information. His father had never mentioned Army intelligence. As far as Ethan knew, Harold Reed had served in a regular infantry unit before being honorably discharged in 1990. He kept things close to the vest. Jack continues rotating his glass slowly on the bar top, even back then, especially back then. What can you tell me about Fort Carson, 1989? Jack's hand freezes mid-rotation. His eyes reflected in the bar mirror harden. Where did you hear that name? My father's journal. He mentioned Fort Carson and something about missing weapons. Jack drains his whiskey and sets the glass down with deliberate care. Not here. He stands dropping cash on the bar. Let's walk. Outside, the evening air has cooled. Jack leads Ethan to a small park across the street, away from potential listeners. They sit on a bench overlooking a duck pond, the water reflecting the deepening blue of twilight. Fort Carson is a military installation in Colorado. Jack begins, the voice lowered. In 1989, a significant quantity of weapons and equipment disappeared from a secure facility there. M4 carbines, M16s, night vision gear explosives. Street value around $134 million in today's money. What happened officially? Inventory error. Jack's voice is bitter. Unofficially, one of the largest inside jobs in military history. Someone with high-level access cleared those weapons out and made them disappear without a trace. And my father was involved. Jack studies Ethan's face. Your father was part of the team investigating the theft. He was good. Too good. Started connecting dots that powerful people wanted to remain disconnected. What kind of dots? The kind that lead to people who can make problems disappear, including investigators who ask too many questions. Ethan leans forward. Are you saying my father was threatened? I'm saying your father made a strategic decision to protect his family. Jack's voice is measured, careful. He resigned his commission, moved back to Oakridge, took over the family mill, became Harold Reed's simple lumberman. No one looks twice at a man covered in sawdust. But he didn't stop investigating, did he? Jack's laugh is short, humorless. Harold never. He just changed tactics. Went quiet, patient. The mill gave him perfect cover. Suppliers, contractors, deliveries coming and going. No one questions a business receiving packages and shipments. And what was he looking for all these years? The money. The weapons were just the product. The real crime was the money laundering operation behind it. Military contracts inflated by millions. Funds diverted through shell companies. Black market sales. Jack glances around, ensuring they're still alone. Your father believes someone local was connected to it all. Someone using Oakridge as a quiet hub for a much larger operation. Ethan thinks of his father's journal entries. Richard Reed, my stepbrother. Jack's expression gives nothing away. Your father never shared specific names with me for my protection as much as his. But he was watching someone closely. Someone with connections to international finance and legal expertise in offshore banking. Martin Blackwood. The pieces start clicking into place. Why are you telling me this now? Ethan asks. Because Harold made me promise that if anything happened to him, I'd help you understand what you'd inherited. Jack looks directly at Ethan. That mill isn't just a building, son. It's the key to something your father spent 30 years putting together. Evidence, documentation, proof of who was really behind Fort Carson and everything that came after. Ethan absorbs this, thinking of the map, the journal, the reference to a lower vault. There's something at the mill, something hidden. Jack nods once. If Harold hid it, it'll be secure, well-concealed, and rigged to destroy itself if accessed improperly. Your father was thorough. And Richard and Catherine, what do they know? Richard knows something valuable is connected to the mill, or he wouldn't be so eager to get his hands on it. But I doubt Harold would have let him get close to the truth. Catherine, Jack hesitates. Your father always believed Catherine was simply following Richard's lead. Ambitious, but not malicious. And Martin Blackwood, my ex-wife's new husband. Jack's expression darkens. Blackwood came to town 5 years ago. Suddenly opens a law practice specializing in international business transactions in Oakridge of all places. Shortly after he begins courting your ex-wife. Shortly after that, your father's health begins to decline. You think Blackwood poisoned my father? I think coincidences stack up until they're no longer coincidental. Jack stands. You should get back to the mill. Find what your father left for you, but be careful. If your father was right about the people involved they've killed to protect their secret before. I'm not exactly defenseless, Ethan says, rising as well. Jack places a hand on Ethan's shoulder. Neither was your father. Neither was I. Yet here we are, him gone, me an old man, drinking alone at the VFW. Don't underestimate these people, Ethan. As they part ways, Jack calls after him. One more thing. Your father mentioned a name to me once. Said if anything happened to him, this person could be trusted. Amanda Collins. She's a reporter with the Oakridge Gazette. A reporter. Why would Dad trust a reporter? Some battles can't be won in the shadows, son. Sometimes you need the light of public exposure. Find Amanda. Tell her Harold Reed sent you. The sky has darkened to deep purple by the time Ethan returns to the mill. He parks his truck behind the building out of sight from the main road. Jack's warnings echo in his mind as he retrieves a flashlight and his father's map from the truck. The property is silent save for the rustle of leaves and the distant call of a night bird. Ethan moves carefully following the map to the southwest corner where the X is marked. The terrain slopes downward here toward a small stream that bisects the property. According to the map, Phase 1 entry should be near the stream bank. Ethan sweeps his flashlight across the ground, searching for anything unusual. The beam catches on something reflective, a small metal plate embedded in a large rock near the water's edge. He kneels to examine it. The plate is weathered bronze engraved with what appears to be a manufacturer's name and serial number, but Ethan recognizes it as a cipher, the kind used in military communications. The pattern matches one of the coded notations in his father's journal. Ethan traces the pattern with his finger, feeling for any mechanism. A section of the plate depresses slightly under pressure. He presses harder and hears a soft click. The rock, artificial he now realizes, shifts slightly. Ethan pushes against it, and a section of the stream bank beside it swings inward, revealing a narrow passage leading underground. A bunker. His father had built a hidden bunker on the property. Ethan hesitates at the entrance flashlight and illuminating rough concrete steps leading downward. The air flowing from below is cool and dry, ventilated somehow. Military grade. He descends slowly, counting the steps. 15 in total, leading to a small landing and a heavy metal door. Unlike the outer entrance, this one features a modern keypad lock. Ethan examines the keypad, then pulls out his father's journal, flipping through, until he finds an entry with a series of numbers underlined, 90, 23, 87, 16. He enters the sequence and the lock releases with a soft hiss. The door swings open to reveal a room approximately 15 feet square. Ethan steps inside and motion sensors activate overhead. LED lights. The space is utilitarian but well-equipped. Metal shelving lines the walls holding supplies, electronics, and filing cabinets. A workstation dominates one corner, featuring multiple computer monitors currently dark. A cot is tucked against another wall. This wasn't just a storage facility. His father had worked here, lived here perhaps during his final days. Ethan approaches the workstation and finds a power switch beneath the desk. The system hums to life, monitors flickering on one by one. A password prompt appears on the main screen. He tries the same code from the door. Access denied. Ethan thinks, remembering his father's letter. Not all treasures glitter, son. Some are measured in truth, not gold. He types truth, not gold. Demands. The system accepts the password. Files and folders populate the screens. Hundreds, maybe thousands of documents, photographs, financial records, all meticulously organized by date and subject. One folder catches his eye. FC-89 Primary. Fort Carson, 1989. Ethan clicks it open. Inside are photographs of military shipping manifests, personnel records, and security logs, all from Fort Carson in 1989. Many are marked with his father's notations connecting names, dates, signatures. Another folder, RG Enterprises Financial. Inside banking records showing transactions between RG Enterprises, Richard's company, and various offshore accounts. Millions moving through shell corporations, then disappearing into numbered accounts in countries with strict banking secrecy laws. A third folder, Blackwood Connections. Ethan opens it to find surveillance photos of Martin meeting with Richard at various locations. Restaurants, office buildings, once on Richard's yacht. In one photo, though, they're joined by a third man, Ethan doesn't recognize but whose face has been circled in red with a note, Sever Zurich Connection. Ethan sits back trying to absorb the magnitude of what he's seeing. His father had spent decades building this case, documenting every connection, every transaction, creating a web of evidence that pointed to one inescapable conclusion. Richard Reed and Martin Blackwood were part of an international money laundering operation that began with the Fort Carson weapons theft in 1989. But why had his father kept this secret for so long? Why not bring it to the authorities years ago? Ethan clicks on another folder, Harold Personal. Inside is a single video file titled For Ethan. His hand hesitates over the mouse, then he clicks. His father's face fills the screen. Harold Reed recorded perhaps a month before his death. Thin, pale, but his eyes still sharp, still determined. Ethan, if you're watching this, then you found what I've spent the last 30 years building. The evidence, the connections, the truth. Harold pauses, gathering his thoughts. I was part of the team investigating the Fort Carson theft in 1989. We were getting close, too close, to discovering who was behind it. Then the pressure started. First professional, investigations stalled, evidence disappeared, witnesses became uncooperative. Then personal, threats against your mother, against you. Harold's expression hardens. I made a choice. I resigned my commission, returned to Oakridge, became the simple miller everyone expected me to be. But I never stopped. I just changed tactics. He leans closer to the camera. What you need to understand, Ethan, is that Richard isn't just your stepbrother. He's the son of the man who orchestrated the Fort Carson theft. Colonel William Grant, my former commanding officer, and Eleanor's first husband. When I married Eleanor after your mother died, I knew Richard had his father's ambition. But I didn't realize he also had his connections. Not until later. Harold pauses, pain flickering across his face. The weapons theft was just the beginning. The real operation was the money. $134 million laundered through military contracts, construction projects, eventually finding its way to RG Enterprises and a network of offshore accounts. Richard continued what his father started, expanding the operation over decades. And when Martin Blackwood arrived in Oakridge, I knew they were consolidating their position, preparing for something bigger. Harold coughs a deep rattling sound. I believe they have been poisoning me slowly. Nothing traceable, nothing obvious, but I've been documenting the symptoms, having independent blood tested on. The evidence is in the medical folder. He straightens, determination replacing the momentary weakness. But I've left them surprise. Ethan, the money, all $134 million. I've found it, tracked it through every shell, company, every transfer, and I've taken it. A thin smile crosses Harold's face. Digital forensics was always my specialty. They never knew who they were dealing with. I've transferred the funds to secure accounts only you can access. The details are in the vault beneath this room. The entrance is behind the filing cabinet marked Tax Records 2010-2015. Another keypad, same code as this one. Harold's expression softens. I'm sorry for the burden I'm placing on you, son. Sorry that your inheritance isn't something simple and clean. But you're the only one I trust with this. You have the training, the integrity, and the courage to finish what I started. Harold leans back suddenly, looking very tired. Be careful, Ethan. These people have killed before. They'll kill again to protect themselves. Trust Sullivan. Trust Amanda Collins at the Gazette. She's been gathering information from her end for years. And watch out for Emma and Ethan Jr. Richard and Martin won't hesitate to use them against you. Harold looks directly into the camera, his gaze intense. I'm proud of you, son. Always have been. The mill isn't just a mill. It's been my cover, my base of operations. The lower vault contains everything you need. Evidence, account information, names. Use it wisely. Use it for justice. The video ends, freezing on Harold's face, determined, resolute to the end. Ethan sits in silence, processing his father's words. Then he rises and moves to the filing cabinet marked Tax Records 2010-2015. Behind it, just as his father said, is another keypad. He enters the code and a section of the floor slides open, revealing a steep staircase descending further underground. The lower vault, the final secret. Ethan takes a deep breath and starts down the stairs. Whatever lies below will change everything, not just for him, but for Richard, Catherine Martin Blackwood, and everyone connected to them. The truth buried for 30 years is about to come to light. The staircase to the lower vault descends into darkness, each step taking Ethan deeper beneath the old mill. The air grows cooler, tinged with the scent of concrete and metal. Motion sensors trigger lights that illuminate his path, military-grade technology hidden beneath the facade of a dilapidated lumber mill. At the bottom of the stairs, a reinforced steel door stands as the final barrier. Unlike the previous security measures, this one features both a keypad and a biometric scanner. Ethan studies it for a moment, then places his palm against the scanner. A soft blue light passes beneath his hand. Biometric signature confirmed. Read Ethan W. Access granted. The heavy door slides open with a hydraulic hiss, revealing a chamber roughly twice the size of the room above. Unlike the utilitarian workspace of the upper bunker, this space resembles a high-tech command center. Computer servers hum quietly along one wall. A large digital display dominates another. Glass cases contain what appear to be artifacts or evidence. Weapons parts, documents, sealed in clear preservation sleeves, photographs, and recording devices. But what immediately draws Ethan's attention is the center of the room. There, arranged on a steel table, sits a row of metal containers. Secured document boxes, each labeled with a different offshore bank name. Beside them lies a leather portfolio stamped with the Reed family crest. Ethan approaches slowly, almost reverently. This is his father's life work. 30 years of investigation, evidence gathering, and secret operations, all hidden beneath an abandoned lumber mill in rural Pennsylvania. He opens the leather portfolio first. Inside, a handwritten letter rests atop a stack of documents. Ethan, if you're reading this, you've discovered the truth about Oakridge Mill and what lies beneath it. What began as a military investigation in 1989 became my life's work, tracking the money, following the connections, building a case that no one could dismiss or bury. The weapons theft at Fort Carson was orchestrated by Colonel William Grant Richards' biological father and my former commanding officer. When I married Eleanor after your mother's death, I had no idea her former husband had been the architect of one of the largest military thefts in American history. By the time I discovered the truth, Richard was already following in his father's footsteps, expanding the operation from weapons trafficking to international money laundering. The evidence in this room proves everything. The original theft, the shell companies, the offshore accounts, the bribes to military and government officials. Most importantly, it proves that Richard Reed and Martin Blackwood have continued and expanded these operations, using Oakridge as their quiet headquarters. But I've done more than gather evidence, son. I've taken back what they stole, $134 million from the original Fort Carson theft. I've tracked it through every transaction, every shell company, every offshore account, and I've recovered it. The metal containers hold the access information to accounts where I've secured these funds. The money is now clean, legitimate, and untraceable to its origins. It belongs to you now. Use it wisely. Use it for justice. Be careful, Ethan. When Richard and Martin discover what I've done, what you now know, they will stop at nothing to silence you. Trust Sullivan, trust Amanda Collins, and above all, protect Emma and Ethan Jr. With pride and love, your father. Ethan sets the letter aside and examines the metal containers. Each is secured with a combination lock. He tries his father's code, 90238716, on the first container. The lock opens with a satisfying click. Inside, detail banking information for accounts in Zurich, Grand Cayman, and Singapore. Account numbers, access codes, security protocols. According to the documentation, these accounts hold a combined total of $92 million. The second container opens with the same code. This one contains property deeds, ownership certificates for corporations established in tax-friendly jurisdictions, and investment portfolios. All clean, all legitimate, now belonging to Ethan Reed. Assets worth approximately $42 million. His father hadn't just tracked the money, he'd recovered it, laundered it legitimately, and secured it where Richard and Martin could never reach it. A fortune hidden in plain sight, waiting for the right heir. Ethan closes the containers, his mind racing. With this kind of financial resource, he could do anything. Disappear with his children to a new life. Expose Richard and Martin without fear of repercussions, rebuild the mill into something worthy of his father's legacy. But first, he needs to understand the full scope of what he's dealing with. He turns to the computer system and activates the main display. A complex network diagram appears showing connections between dozens of entities, corporations, individuals, banks, military contracts. At the center, RG Enterprises. Branching from it, Martin Blackwood's law firm Bishop and Associates, connected to both a Swiss company called Severance Holdings. Ethan studies the diagram tracing connections, understanding the scope of his father's investigation. This wasn't just about the Fort Carson theft anymore. This was a decades-long criminal enterprise that had expanded into government contracts, defense industry kickbacks, and international finance. He checks his watch. Nearly midnight. He's been in the bunker for hours. The weight of his father's revelations presses down on him. This isn't just an inheritance. It's a mission, a responsibility, a burden that requires careful planning and precise execution. Ethan gathers the most critical documents, securing them in a waterproof messenger bag. He'll need to review everything in detail, make copies, establish secure storage locations for backups, military protocol for high-value intelligence. He takes one last look around the vault at his father's legacy of determination and justice. Then he heads back up the stairs, securing each door behind him, returning the bunker to its hidden state. Outside, the night is quiet. Too quiet. The natural sounds of the forest, insects, night birds, rustling leaves, have gone silent. Ethan instantly shifts to high alert, scanning the darkness, senses heightened from years of combat situations. Movement near the tree line. Just a shadow shifting against shadows, but enough for trained eyes. Ethan slips behind the trunk of a massive oak messenger bag secured against his body. Flashlight beams cut through the darkness, sweeping across the mill property. Two figures approach from the main road, moving with purpose, but not with military precision. Civilians trying to be stealthy. "I'm telling you, this place is worthless." A male voice carries on the night air. "Richard Reed. I don't know what Ethan thinks he's going to find here." "Your father must have had his reasons for leaving it to him." A female voice responds. "Catherine. Harold never did anything without a plan. The old man was losing his mind toward the end." Richard scoffs. "Probably thought he was doing Ethan a favor. Here, son, have a tetanus factory." "We should have waited until morning," Catherine says, her flashlight beam sweeping across the mill's facade. "This place isn't safe after dark. Martin wants us to secure any documents or records before Ethan has a chance to go through everything. Says it's just cleanup, but I think he's nervous about something." Catherine's beam pauses on a broken window. "Martin's always nervous. That's what makes him a good lawyer. Come on, let's check inside and get this over with." Ethan remains motionless behind the oak tree, watching as his step-siblings approach the mill's main entrance. They're looking for something specific, something Martin Blackwood is concerned about. Documents, records, evidence. They don't know about the bunker, or they'd be heading for the southwest corner of the property instead of the main building. Harold's secret remains secure for now. Ethan weighs his options. Confrontation would reveal that he knows more than they think he does. Better to observe, gather intelligence, understand their level of knowledge before making any moves. He watches as Richard and Catherine enter the mill, their flashlight beams visible through the broken windows as they move through the first floor. Ethan circles around to the back of the building, finding a rear entrance that gives him access to the second floor via an external staircase. Moving silently through the darkened upper level, he positions himself near the stairwell where he can hear Richard and Catherine below without being seen. "The office is upstairs," Richard's voice echoes. "That's where he'd keep anything important." "This is a waste of time," Catherine replies. "Whatever Martin's worried about, it won't be sitting in a filing cabinet. Harold was too careful for that. Martin thinks Ethan might have military connections who could cause problems. Says we need to make sure nothing links RG Enterprises to any of the old operations." "Old operations?" Catherine's voice sharpens. "What exactly have you and Martin been involved in, Richard?" A pause. "Just business, Kathy. International finance is complicated. Sometimes regulatory compliance gets creative." "Creative enough that Martin's worried about Ethan finding evidence. Richard, tell me you haven't dragged us into something illegal." "Everything's perfectly legal, just open to interpretation." "Martin's being paranoid. Military types like Ethan make him nervous." Their flashlight beams appear at the bottom of the interior staircase. Ethan retreats deeper into the shadows of the second-floor hallway. "I don't like this," Catherine says as they ascend. Harold was always secretive about his past, but I never thought there was anything sinister behind it. Just a private man who kept to himself. The old man knew how to hold a grudge, Richard replies. Never forgave me for taking over the family business instead of Ethan. This is probably his last attempt to create division between us. They reach the second-floor flashlight sweeping the hallway. Ethan presses himself into a recessed doorway invisible in the darkness. The foreman's office is at the end, Richard says, moving forward. Catherine follows. Ethan waits until they have entered the office, then moves closer, positioning himself where he can hear their conversation without being detected. Someone's been here, Catherine says. Look at the desk. The dust is disturbed. Ethan probably came to see his grand inheritance. Richard's voice drips with sarcasm. The drawer's been opened. Recently. Silence follows, then the sound of wood sliding against wood. There's nothing here, Richard says finally. Just an empty drawer. What did you expect to find? Catherine asks. A treasure map, gold coins. Richard laughs, but there's an edge to it. Martin mentioned a journal, said Harold kept detailed records of his suspicions. His investigations could cause problems if it fell into the wrong hands. And Ethan would be the wrong hands. Catherine's tone is challenging. Ethan is unpredictable. Military training, combat experience, and now he's back in town with a chip on his shoulder. If he starts digging into family history, asking questions about Dad's business dealings, what exactly are you afraid he'll find, Richard? Another pause. Nothing. There's nothing to find. Martin's being overly cautious, that's all. I'm not sure I believe you. There's something you're not telling me. Drop it, Kathy. Some things are better left alone. The flashlight beams move as they search the office, opening drawers, checking bookshelves, looking behind filing. There's nothing here, Richard concludes. Let's check the storage room down the hall. Maybe he kept records there. Their footsteps retreat from the office. Ethan waits, listening as they move to another room. Then he slips away down the external staircase and back into the cover of darkness. He needs to move quickly now. Richard and Catherine's presence confirms Martin's concern about documents, evidence that could link him and Richard to criminal activities. The bunker remains secure, but Ethan himself is now a target. And if Martin is willing to send Richard and Catherine to search the mill at night, what else might he be planning? Ethan makes his way to his truck, careful to stay in the shadows. He needs a secure location to examine the documents he's taken from the vault. The motel isn't safe, too exposed, too accessible. He needs somewhere unexpected, somewhere Martin and Richard wouldn't think to look. As he drives away from the mill, a plan begins to form. He has resources now, significant resources, and he has his father's evidence. But most importantly, he has the element of surprise. Martin and Richard don't know what he knows. They don't know about the bunker, the vault, the recovered funds. Ethan's advantage is knowledge, and he intends to use it. The Oakridge Gazette occupies a small brick building on Main Street, its facade unchanged since the 1950s. The newspaper itself is modest, a twice-weekly publication serving Oakridge and surrounding communities. Not the kind of outlet that typically breaks stories about international money laundering and military theft. Ethan parks across the street, watching as the first employees arrive for the day. It's 7:30 a.m. and he hasn't slept. After leaving the mill, he drove to neighboring Preston County, checked into a motel under a false name, and spent the night reviewing his father's documents. The picture they paint is comprehensive and damning. Richard Reed and Martin Blackwood are the current heads of an operation that began with the Fort Carson theft in 1989. What started as a weapons theft, it evolved into a sophisticated money laundering network using military contracts, international construction projects, and offshore banking to move and clean hundreds of millions of dollars. And Harold Reed, over 30 years, had documented all of it. Names, dates, account numbers, transactions. A meticulous case built by a man who understood that his own time was limited. Ethan watches as a woman in her 50s enters the Gazette building. Short gray hair, sensible clothes, carrying a messenger bag similar to his own. From his father's files, he recognizes her. Amanda Collins, investigative reporter and editor. 30 years at the Oakridge Gazette. According to Harold's notes, one of the few people he trusted. Ethan waits another 15 minutes, ensuring no one is watching the building or following him. Then he crosses the street and enters the Gazette's modest lobby. A young receptionist looks up from her computer. "Can I help you?" I'd like to speak with Amanda Collins, please. Do you have an appointment? No, but I think she'll want to talk to me. Tell her Ethan Reed is here. Harold Reed's son. The receptionist's eyes widen slightly at the name. She picks up her phone, speaks quietly, then nods. Miss Collins will see you. Through that door, first office, on the right. Ethan follows the directions to a small, cluttered office. Maps and notes cover one wall. Filing cabinets line another. The desk is organized chaos. Stacks of papers, research materials, 3 computer monitors displaying different document sets. Amanda Collins stands as he enters, extending her hand. Her grip is firm, her gaze direct and assessing. Ethan Reed, I've been wondering when you'd show up. My father suggested I talk to you. A shadow crosses her face. Harold was a good man. His death was a significant loss to this community, more than most people realize. She gestures to a chair. Ethan sits, placing his messenger bag on the floor beside him. I take it you found something at the mill, Amanda says, resuming her seat. Direct, no preamble. Ethan appreciates the approach. I found everything, he replies. 30 years of evidence and the money. Amanda's expression doesn't change, but he notices her hand still on the desk. You'd better start at the beginning. For the next hour, Ethan outlines what he's discovered. The bunker, the vault, his father's evidence, documenting the connection between the Fort Carson theft and the current operations run by Richard Reed and Martin Blackwood. He doesn't mention the $134 million his father recovered. Not yet. Trust requires verification. Amanda listens without interruption, occasionally making notes. When Ethan finishes, she leans back in her chair, studying him. I've been investigating parts of this for 20 years, she says finally. Started with irregularities in military contracts awarded to local construction companies. Found connections to RG Enterprises, odd banking patterns, unexplained wealth. But I never had enough to publish. Never had the smoking gun. My father provided the smoking gun, multiple smoking guns. May I see patay? Ethan hesitates, then opens his messenger bag and removes a file folder. Inside are copies of key documents, banking records, corporate filings, surveillance photos. Enough to establish credibility without revealing everything. Amanda examines the documents carefully, her experienced eyes recognizing their significance. This is extraordinary, she murmurs. Harold really did it. He built the case. He did more than that, Ethan says. He was preparing to expose everything when his health began to decline. He believed he was being poisoned. Amanda looks up sharply. Poisoned? Slowly over time. Nothing that would raise immediate alarms. He documented his symptoms, had independent blood tests done. The results are in his files. Do you have those tests? Ethan nods. Copies. The originals are secure. This changes the scope significantly. We're not just talking about financial crimes anymore. We're talking about murder. My father believed Martin Blackwood was responsible. He arrived in Oakridge 5 years ago, established his law practice, and began a relationship with my ex-wife shortly after. My father's health started deteriorating around the same time. Amanda makes another note. Martin Blackwood, Harvard Law, worked for firms in New York and Boston before relocating to Oakridge. Specializes in international business law. No apparent reason for someone with his credentials to settle in a declining lumber town. He followed the money, Ethan says simply. Or rather, he followed Richard Reed, who controlled the money. And now you control it. Amanda's statement hangs in the air between them. Ethan meets her gaze steadily. My father recovered the funds, all $134 million. It's secure, legitimate, and untraceable to its origins. That's a significant development. Amanda chooses her words carefully. What do you intend to do with it? Complete my father's mission. Expose Richard and Martin. Bring down their operation. Clear my father's name. Publishing this story will make you a target. More of a target than you already are. These people have resources, connections. They've killed before. I have resources too, Ethan counters, and military training. And now I have you, a respected journalist with the platform to make the story public. Amanda nods slowly. The Oakridge Gazette isn't exactly the Washington Post, but I have connections at larger outlets. This story is too big for just our local paper. How long would it take to prepare the article with what I've provided? A week to verify key elements, conduct additional interviews, prepare the full package. But Ethan, once we start this process, there's no turning back. Richard and Martin will know we're coming after them. They'll take defensive measures, possibly offensive ones. I understand the risks. Do you? These men aren't just white-collar criminals. They've maintained this operation for decades, evading military investigators, federal agents, and international authorities. They won't hesitate to eliminate threats. All the more reason to move quickly, Ethan says. My father spent 30 years building this case. I won't let his work go to waste. Amanda studies him for a long moment, then nods decisively. All right, I'll need copies of everything you have, and we'll need a secure method of communication. Nothing that can be traced or monitored. I anticipated that. Ethan reaches into his bag and removes two burner phones, prepaid purchased with cash in Preston County. We use these only to contact each other, then dispose of them once the story breaks. Military protocols, Amanda observes, taking one of the phones. Old habits. They might keep you alive. Amanda stands, moving to a filing cabinet. She unlocks it and removes a thick folder. This is everything I've gathered over the years. Names of former employees who might talk, financial discrepancies I couldn't fully explain, patterns of behavior that raised red flags. It's not conclusive on its own, but combined with your father's evidence, we build an airtight case, Ethan finishes. Exactly. Now you should go. The longer you're seen here, the more likely someone will notice and report back to Richard or Martin. Ethan rises, securing his messenger bag. I'll get you copies of everything within 48 hours. Where will you stay? The motel isn't safe. I have arrangements. Ethan doesn't elaborate. The fewer people who know his movements, the better. Be careful, Ethan, and watch out for your children. If Martin feels threatened, he might use them as leverage. The thought sends a chill through Ethan. Emma and Ethan Jr., innocent in all this, yet potentially in danger because of their connection to him. I need to get them somewhere safe, he says, more to himself than to Amanda. You'll need legal grounds to take them from their mother's custody. Without that, it's parental kidnapping. Then I need to find those grounds, or as Ethan says grimly, before Martin realizes what we're doing. As Ethan leaves the Gazette building, he doesn't notice the black SUV parked at the far end of Main Street or the man inside taking photographs with a long-range lens. Rebecca's house is quiet when Ethan drives past at midday. No cars in the driveway, everyone gone for the day. Emma and Ethan Jr. at school, Rebecca at her real estate office, Martin at his law practice. Ethan continues down the street, turning at the corner, then parking where he can observe the house without being obvious. He needs information about Martin's schedule, about the house layout, about potential security systems. Intelligence gathering just as he was trained. His phone buzzes. A text from Rebecca. Why are you asking questions about Martin around town? Stay away from my house and my family. Ethan frowns. He hasn't asked questions about Martin. Hasn't spoken to anyone in town except Jack Sullivan and Amanda Collins. Someone is trying to drive a wedge between him and Rebecca, creating suspicion where none should exist. Martin most likely on preemptive action to isolate Ethan from potential allies. Ethan starts his truck and drives away from Rebecca's neighborhood. Direct confrontation won't work. It would only reinforce whatever narrative Martin has created. He needs a different approach, one that appeals to Rebecca's intelligence and maternal instincts. He drives to Oakridge Real Estate, where Rebecca works as an agent. The office is on the ground floor of a small professional building downtown. Through the large front windows, Ethan can see Rebecca at her desk, phone to her ear, gesturing as she speaks. He waits in his truck until she finishes her call, then exits the office with a folder of papers. As she walks to her car in the adjacent parking lot, Ethan approaches, keeping his movements casual, non-threatening. Rebecca. She stops, turning to face him. Her expression is guarded, wary. Ethan, I told you to stay away. We need to talk. It's important. I have nothing to say to you. It's about Martin, and it might affect Emma and Ethan Jr. Rebecca's eyes narrow. Whatever problems you have with Martin are your business. Leave my children out of it. Our children, Ethan corrects gently, and they might be in danger. Danger from Martin. Rebecca laughs, but it sounds forced. That's absurd. Is it, how much do you really know about him, about his past, about his business connections? Something flickers in Rebecca's eyes. Doubt, perhaps, or recognition. Martin is a successful attorney who provides well for us. That's all I need to know. And what if there's more to it? What if his success comes from illegal activities? Money laundering, possibly worse. Rebecca glances around, ensuring no one is within earshot. These are serious accusations, Ethan. Do you have any proof? I do. Substantial proof. My father spent years documenting Martin's connection to criminal enterprises. Your father, Rebecca's voice softens slightly. Harold was a kind man, a good grandfather to the children, but he was just a lumber mill operator. He was much more than that, Ethan says. And he left me evidence that Martin Blackwood is involved in illegal activities dating back decades. Activities that have already led to at least one death. Rebecca's professional composure wavers. One death whose, my father's. He was being poisoned, Rebecca, slowly, methodically, and he knew it was happening. Rebecca takes a step back, shaking her head. This is crazy, Ethan. You've always had an overactive imagination, but this is beyond. Martin arrived in Oakridge 5 years ago, Ethan interrupts. Why would a Harvard-educated lawyer specializing in international finance choose to practice in a declining lumber town? What brought him here? Rebecca doesn't answer immediately. Ethan presses on. He sought you out specifically. A divorced mother of two whose ex-husband was deployed overseas. Convenient, unquestioning. A perfect cover for his real activities. Stop it, Rebecca snaps, but her voice lacks conviction. You're just jealous because I've moved on, because the children have a new father figure. Am I? Think about it, Rebecca. The unexplained business trips, the late-night phone calls in languages you don't understand, the security precautions around his home office. Has he ever fully explained what he does? Who his clients are? Rebecca's silence is answer enough. I'm not asking you to believe me right now. Ethan continues, his voice gentler. I'm asking you to be careful, to be vigilant, for Emma and Ethan Jr.'s sake. What exactly are you suggesting? Keep your eyes open. Notice his behavior, especially now that I'm back in town. And if anything seems wrong, anything at all, call me. Ethan hands her a slip of paper with his burner phone number. This line is secure. Martin can't trace it. Rebecca takes the paper hesitantly. You really believe Martin is dangerous? I know he is, and soon everyone else will know it too. Rebecca studies him, searching his face for signs of deception or delusion. Finding none, she tucks the paper into her pocket. I need to go. I have a showing in 20 minutes. Be careful, Rebecca. Watch over our children. She nods almost imperceptibly, then walks to her car without looking back. Ethan watches her drive away, hoping he's planted enough doubt to make her cautious. Rebecca is intelligent, observant. If she starts paying closer attention to Martin's activities, she might notice the inconsistencies, the warning signs. And if Martin is planning to use Emma and Ethan Jr. as leverage, Rebecca might be their first line of defense. The next 48 hours pass in a blur of activity. Ethan establishes a temporary base of operations in an abandoned hunting cabin on the outskirts of Preston County, remote, defensible, and unknown to Richard or Martin. From there, he coordinates with Amanda Collins, providing copies of his father's evidence, discussing strategy for the eventual publication. He also makes trips to 3 different banks in 3 different cities, opening new accounts under an LLC established years ago as part of his military exit planning. The accounts will hold portions of the recovered funds distributed to minimize risk and maximize security. On the morning of the 3rd day, Ethan receives a text on his burner phone. Need to talk. Something's happening. Meet at the diner. 1:00 p.m. R. Rebecca. Ethan checks his watch. 11:30 a.m. Enough time to secure his materials and make the drive back to Oakridge. He arrives at Miller's Diner at 12:45, choosing a booth at the back with a clear view of both entrances. Old military habits. Always position yourself with visibility and a ready exit. Rebecca arrives precisely at 1:00, looking nervous and distracted. She slides into the booth across from Ethan, declining the waitress's offer of coffee. Martin received a call last night, she begins without preamble. He thought I was asleep, but I heard him talking in his office. Something about securing the assets and removing potential liabilities. He mentioned your name. Ethan nods unsurprised. He knows I'm investigating him. And there's more. This morning he told me he's enrolling Emma in a private school in Switzerland. Said it's a tremendous opportunity that can't be delayed. She would leave next week. The implications are clear. Martin is attempting to separate the children using Emma as a hostage to ensure Ethan's compliance. Did he mention Ethan Jr.? Rebecca shakes her head. Just Emma for now. But Ethan, I can't let him send her away. She's just a child. She needs stability, not a boarding school thousands of miles away. Did you object? Of course I did. He said it was already arranged that his business associates had pulled strings to secure her a spot mid-semester. When I pressed him, he became different, cold, calculating. Not the Martin I thought I knew. That's the real Martin, Ethan says quietly, the one he keeps hidden behind the successful attorney facade. Rebecca looks down at her hands clasped tightly on the table. I've noticed things since we talked. Small things I'd overlooked before for secure phone calls, meetings with Richard that he doesn't discuss afterward, a safe in his office that I'm not allowed to access. You believe me now. It's not a question, but Rebecca answers anyway. I believe something isn't right, and I won't let he use my daughter as a pawn in whatever game he's playing. Our daughter, Ethan corrects gently, and we're going to protect her. Both of them. Hal Martin has legal authority as their stepfather, and the custody agreement gives me primary custody. We need to change that, temporarily at least. Do you have any friends you could stay with? Someone Martin doesn't know well. Rebecca thinks for a moment. My college roommate in Pittsburgh. Martin's only met her once at our wedding. Good. Take the children there. Tell Martin you're visiting family in Cleveland. Make it seem routine, nothing that would raise suspicion. And then what? Then we wait. Amanda Collins is preparing to publish the story about Martin and Richard's criminal enterprise. Once it's public with evidence to back it up, we'll have legal grounds to protect the children. Rebecca hesitates. What kind of criminal enterprise exactly? You never specified. Ethan weighs how much to reveal. Rebecca deserves the truth, but too much information could put her at additional risk. It started with a weapons theft from Fort Carson military base in 1989. $134 million worth of equipment disappeared. That money was laundered through various businesses, eventually finding its way to RG Enterprises, Richard's company. Martin provides the legal framework that keeps their operations just this side of detectable. And Harold discovered all this? My father spent 30 years building the case. He was close to exposing everything when his health began to decline. When Martin came to town, Rebecca murmurs, making the connection. Exactly. Martin was sent to Oakridge for a specific purpose, to neutralize my father and secure the local operation. Your relationship was collateral benefit, a perfect cover. Rebecca's face pales. He used me, used my children. I'm sorry, Rebecca, truly. She straightens a new resolve, hardening her features. When do we move? Today, now, go home. Pack essentials for yourself and the children. Pick them up from school early. Say there's a family emergency. Then drive straight to Pittsburgh. Don't tell anyone where you're going, not even your mother. Martin checks my credit cards. My phone. He'll track us. Use cash. Ethan removes an envelope from his jacket and slides it across the table. $10,000, enough for several weeks of expenses. And buy a prepaid phone once you're in Pittsburgh. Toss your current one. Martin might have installed tracking software. Rebecca takes the envelope, her hand trembling slightly. This is really happening, isn't it? It's not just paranoia or jealousy. It's happening, and it's deadly serious. Martin Blackwood is not the man you married. He's a criminal who's killed before and will kill again if necessary. Rebecca nods, tucking the envelope into her purse. I'll text you from the new phone when we're safe in Pittsburgh. Use this number. Ethan writes the burner phone number on a napkin. Memorize it, then destroy the napkin. You've done this before, Rebecca observes. Extraction protocols, safe houses, burner phones. Delta Force training. Never thought I'd be using it to protect my own family. Rebecca rises from the booth. I should go. It will take time to pack without Martin noticing anything unusual. Be careful. Act normal. If anything seems wrong, if you feel watched or threatened, abort the plan and call me immediately. I will. Rebecca pauses, looking down at Ethan. For what it's worth, I'm sorry about everything. Before Ethan can respond, she turns and walks quickly out of the diner. He remains in the booth, watching through the window as Rebecca drives away. The first phase of his plan is in motion, securing Emma and Ethan Jr. The next phase, exposing Martin and Richard, is more complicated and more dangerous. Ethan pays for his coffee and exits the diner, scanning the street for any sign of surveillance. Nothing obvious, but Martin is too sophisticated for obvious. The real watchers would be discreet, professional, easy to overlook. He walks to his truck, maintaining casual awareness of his surroundings. As he reaches for the door handle, he notices a small object wedged between the driver's seat and the center console. Something that wasn't there when he parked. A flash drive. Ethan looks around once more, then enters the truck. He doesn't touch the drive immediately, instead starting the engine and pulling away from the diner. Only when he's on the outskirts of town does he retrieve the device, examining it carefully. No markings, no identifying features. Standard commercial model available at any office supply store. Could be harmless, documents from Amanda perhaps. Or it could be surveillance software designed to track his movements or access his data. Ethan drives to a public library in the next town over. There he uses one of the public computers, isolated from his own devices and any personal information, to examine the drive's contents. A single video file. Ethan plugs in earbuds and plays it. The footage is grainy, taken from a security camera. It shows a hospital room. In the bed lies Harold Reed, thin and pale, clearly in his final days. Seated beside the bed is Martin Blackwood, dressed in an expensive suit, his posture relaxed, confident. Martin leans forward, speaking to Harold. The camera has no audio, but Martin's words are clear enough to read from his lips. You should have stayed retired, Harold. Enjoyed your golden years. Instead, you kept digging, kept building your little case. And for what, no one will ever see it. No one will ever know. Harold's response is too weak to discern, but it clearly angers Martin, whose expression hardens. Your son Ethan is halfway around the world fighting someone else's war. By the time he returns, if he returns, there will be nothing left to find. I've made sure of that. Martin reaches into his jacket pocket and removes a small vial and syringe. As he fills the syringe with clear liquid, Harold attempts to reach for the call button. Martin easily intercepts his hand. This won't be detected in a standard autopsy. Just another failing organ in an old man's body. Richard sends his regards, by the way. Says you should have minded your own business, just like William told you years ago. Martin injects the contents of the syringe into Harold's eyeline, then rises, straightening his tie. Goodbye, Harold. Your little crusade dies with you. Martin exits the room, leaving Harold alone. For several moments, nothing happens. Then Harold's body spasms once, twice. His back arches. His monitor begins flashing warnings. By the time medical staff rush in, Harold Reed is dead. The video ends. Ethan sits frozen, staring at the blank screen. Raw emotion surges through him. Grief, rage, a visceral desire for vengeance. But beneath these cold clarity, this video is the smoking gun. Irrefutable evidence that Martin Blackwood murdered Harold Reed. But who recorded it? Who placed it in his truck? And why now a new text appears on his burner phone? Now you have what you need. Amanda has a copy too. Be careful. They know you're close. C. Catherine, his stepsister, the one person Harold believed wasn't fully complicit in Richard's operations. Ethan ejects the flash drive and pockets it. This changes everything. With this evidence, they don't need to wait for Amanda's investigative piece. They can go directly to law enforcement with proof of murder. He's about to leave when another text arrives. Urgent, Martin knows. Taking children now, need help, R. Ethan's blood runs cold. He rushes from the library to his truck, dialing Rebecca's number as he drives. No answer. He tries again, pushing his truck to its limits as he races back toward Oakridge. Still no answer. A third text appears. Too late. He has Emma, Ethan Jr. with me, hiding at Sullivan's. Come quick. R. Jack Sullivan's house on the far side of Oakridge, near the lake. 20 minutes away, at normal driving speed. Ethan will make it in 10. The truck's engine roars as he pushes it harder, tires squealing as he takes corners at dangerous speeds. Martin has Emma. The words repeat in his mind, fueling a cold fury unlike anything he's experienced even in combat. Ethan reaches for his phone, calling Amanda Collins. Amanda, it's Ethan. Martin has my daughter. I need you to contact the state police immediately. Tell them Martin Blackwood has kidnapped Emma Reed and is considered armed and dangerous. Tell them he's also wanted for the murder of Harold Reed. We have video evidence. My God, Amanda gasps. Where are you now? Heading to Jack Sullivan's place. Rebecca and Ethan Jr. are hiding there. Martin may know that location too. I'll call the police immediately. Be careful, Ethan. Martin has nothing to lose now. Ethan ends the call and focuses on driving his military training, kicking and channeling emotion into controlled directed energy. Every second counts. Every decision matters. As Ethan approaches the turnoff for Sullivan's lakeside cabin, he notices a black SUV parked haphazardly on the shoulder. The same model he'd seen around town several times since arriving in Oakridge. He slows, pulling off the road 100 yards past the SUV. No occupants visible. The driver's door stands open. Ethan retrieves a hunting knife from his glove compartment, the only weapon available to him. Then he moves through the woods, parallel to the road approaching Sullivan's property, from an angle that provides cover and visibility. The cabin comes into view, a modest structure of logs and stone, set back from the lake shore. No vehicles in the driveway, no movement visible through the windows. Ethan circles the property, checking for signs of entry or struggle. The back door is ajar, swinging slightly in the breeze off the lake. He approaches cautiously, knife-ready, senses heightened. From inside, he hears voices. Jack Sullivan, his tone measured but firm. Rebecca, frightened but controlled. And Richard Reed, speaking with uncharacteristic agitation. This has gone too far, Martin. Kidnapping a child, murder. This isn't what I signed up for. You signed up for all of it the moment you took over your father's operation. Martin's voice replies coldly, "Don't develop a conscience now, Richard. It's far too late for that." "Where's Emma?" Rebecca demands. "What have you done with my daughter?" "Emma is safe," Martin answers. "For now, her continued safety depends entirely on Ethan's cooperation." "What do you want from him?" Jack Sullivan asks. "The evidence, all of it. Harold's records, his files, his precious case that he spent 30 years building. And the money, the $134 million that somehow disappeared from our accounts." "Ethan doesn't have any money," Rebecca protests. "He lives in a motel, drives a truck that's 15 years old." A harsh laugh from Martin. "Is that what he told you? Your ex-husband is currently in control of $134 million in assets carefully hidden in accounts around the world. Harold's final act of defiance, stealing back what was taken from Fort Carson all those years ago." "Fort Carson?" And Rebecca's voice rises in confusion. "What are you talking about?" "Ask Ethan," Martin says dismissively, "if he survives long enough to explain. Ethan has heard enough. He needs to enter the cabin, assess the situation, determine if Emma is inside or being held elsewhere." He shifts position, moving toward the back door, staying low and out of sight from the windows. As he reaches the door, a new voice speaks from inside. "Catherine Reed, this ends now, Martin. We have the video of you murdering Harold. The police are already on their way." Silence follows her declaration. Then Martin's voice, deadly calm. "You recorded it. All this time you have had evidence that could destroy everything, and you said nothing." "I didn't know what it was until recently," Catherine replies. "A security system Harold installed in his hospital room. The footage was automatically uploaded to a secure server. I found the access information in his personal effects last week." "And you gave it to Ethan," Martin concludes, "betraying your own brother in the process." "Richard betrayed himself," Catherine says firmly, "when he followed in William's footsteps, when he chose money over morality. Harold was right about everything. Noble sentiments, Martin mocks, but ultimately meaningless. No one is leaving this cabin alive. Not with what you know." The sound of a gun being cocked echoes through the quiet space. "Where's Emma?" Rebecca demands again, her voice shaking. "That's no longer your concern," Martin replies coldly. "Ethan has seconds to act before the situation deteriorates beyond recovery." He moves to the door, preparing to enter, when a child's voice calls from the direction of the lake. "Dad, help Emma," on the dock behind the cabin. And beside her, a man Ethan doesn't recognize. Tall, muscular, with a military bearing. One of Martin's associates. The man holds Emma by the arm, his other hand resting casually on a holstered pistol. He's watching the cabin, expecting trouble to come from that direction, not from the woods. Ethan changes course immediately, moving through the trees toward the lakeshore. He needs to reach Emma before the situation inside the cabin forces Martin's associate to take drastic action. As he approaches the dock, Ethan hears police sirens in the distance. Amanda Collins has come through. Law enforcement is on the way, but they won't arrive in time. The man on the dock hears the sirens too. He pulls Emma closer, drawing his weapon, speaking into a radio attached to his shoulder. "We've got company coming." "Police sirens, orders?" A voice crackles through the radio. Martin's voice. "Bring the girl inside. We're leaving through the tunnel. 2 minutes." Tunnel. Ethan hadn't seen any indication of an underground passage, but it makes sense. Jack Sullivan, like Harold Reed, was military intelligence. Of course, his lake cabin would have an escape route. The man tugs Emma toward the cabin. She resists, dragging her feet, buying precious seconds. "Move it, kid," the man growls, yanking her arm roughly. Ethan emerges from the tree line, knife in hand, moving silently across the open ground toward the dock. 15 yards. 10. 5. The man turns, sensing movement. His gun starts to rise. Ethan launches forward, covering the final distance in a burst of speed honed through years of combat training. He strikes the man's gun arm first, deflecting the weapon away from Emma. His second blow targets the solar plexus, driving the air from the man's lungs. As the man doubles over, Ethan delivers a precise strike to the temple, rendering him unconscious. The entire sequence takes less than 3 seconds. "Dad!" Emma throws herself into Ethan's arms, trembling but unharmed. "I've got you, sweetheart. You're safe now." Ethan holds her tight, his heart pounding with relief and residual adrenaline. The sirens grow louder. Inside the cabin, raised voices and the sound of a struggle reach them through the open windows. "We need to move," Ethan tells Emma, guiding her away from the dock. "Stay low. Stay quiet." They've almost reached the tree line when the back door of the cabin bursts open. Martin Blackwood emerges, gun in hand, dragging Rebecca as a shield. Behind him comes Richard, ashen-faced and sweating. "Reed!" Martin shouts, scanning the yard. His gaze locks onto Ethan and Emma at the edge of the trees. "Stop right there or she dies!" He presses the gun to Rebecca's head. She stands rigid, with fear eyes fixed on Emma. "Let them go, Martin," Ethan calls back, positioning himself in front of Emma. "It's over. The police are coming. Catherine has the video of you murdering my father. There's nowhere to run." "There's always somewhere to run," Martin snarls. "But you're right about one thing. It is over, for all of you." He shifts his aim from Rebecca to Ethan, squeezing the trigger. The shot cracks across the lake. Ethan feels the bullet whip past his ear, too close for comfort. He pushes Emma to the ground, covering her with his body. From inside the cabin, another shot rings out. Martin staggers, a look of surprise crossing his face. He turns back toward the door where Jack Sullivan stands, an old service pistol steady in his hands. "That's for Harold," Jack says grimly. Martin crumples to the ground, the gun falling from his grasp. Rebecca breaks free, running toward Ethan and Emma as Richard stands, frozen hands raised in surrender. Catherine emerges from the cabin next, followed by a disheveled but determined Ethan Jr. "Mom!" he cries, racing towards Rebecca. As the family reunites, police cars screech into the driveway, officers emerging with weapons drawn. Amanda Collins' sedan pulls in behind them. It's over. Martin Blackwood lies dead on the ground, his schemes exposed, his threat eliminated. Richard Reed stands in silent defeat, awaiting arrest. Catherine moves to Ethan's side. "I'm sorry it took me so long to see the truth," she says quietly. "Harold tried to warn me about Richard, about Martin. I didn't want to believe it." "You came through when it mattered," Ethan replies. "You saved us all." As police officers secure the scene, take statements, and place Richard under arrest, Ethan holds Emma and Ethan Jr. close, Rebecca beside them. A family fragmented by circumstance, now reunited by crisis. But even in this moment of resolution, Ethan knows the full truth hasn't yet emerged. The money, the connections beyond Richard and Martin, the full extent of the operation his father uncovered, and most importantly, the secret his father discovered that made him the target of powerful, dangerous men. The secret that now Ethan alone possesses. The true legacy of Oakridge Mill is still waiting to be revealed. The Oakridge Sheriff's Department stands at the edge of town, its brick facade weathered by decades of Pennsylvania winters. Inside, the fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows across dated furnishings, the air heavy with the scent of coffee and bureaucracy. In Interview Room 2, Ethan Reed sits across from State Police Detective Lisa Harmon, her expression professionally neutral as she reviews her notes. "Let's go through this again, Mr. Reed. You discovered evidence that Martin Blackwood murdered your father, Harold Reed. Evidence provided to you by your stepsister, Catherine Reed." "Correct. That's right. Security footage from my father's hospital room showing Martin injecting something into my father's IV, something that killed him. And this was connected to financial crimes dating back to 1989, the Fort Carson weapons theft. Yes, my father spent 30 years tracking the money from that theft. He discovered it had been laundered through various businesses, eventually flowing through RG Enterprises, Richard Reed's company. Martin Blackwood provided the legal framework that kept it all running. Detective Harmon makes another note, her pen scratching against the pad. And where is this evidence now? The flash drive with the murder video is in your evidence locker. The financial records and other documentation are secured in multiple locations. Amanda Collins at the Gazette has copies. Convenient backups. Military protocol. Never keep all your intel in one place. Detective Harmon nods, understanding the logic. We've confirmed the video's authenticity. It hasn't been doctored or manipulated. The timestamp matches hospital records of your father's death, and the preliminary autopsy we've ordered reveals traces of a sophisticated neurotoxin, one that wouldn't have been detected in a standard examination. So you believe me? The evidence is compelling. Richard Reed is already talking, trying to cut a deal. Claims he wasn't aware of Martin's plan to murder your father or kidnap your daughter, says he was just following the financial playbook his biological father established. William Grant, the colonel who orchestrated the original Fort Carson theft. Yes, died in 1997, conveniently before any investigations could touch him. Your father suspected the connection, but could never prove it definitively. Until now, Detective Harmon closes her notebook. Mr. Reed, there is still the matter of the money, $134 million that your father allegedly recovered from these offshore accounts. Money that technically belongs to the United States government, having been stolen from a military installation. Ethan meets her gaze steadily. I have no knowledge of any such funds. Your stepsister says otherwise. So does Richard Reed. Both claim Harold Reed somehow gained access to the offshore accounts and transferred the funds elsewhere before his death. My father left me Oakridge Mill, that's all. Detective Harmon's expression suggests she doesn't believe him, but she doesn't press the issue. You're free to go for now, Mr. Reed, but don't leave the county. We'll have more questions as this investigation develops. Ethan rises, gathering his jacket. My ex-wife and children, are they safe? Mrs. Blackwood and your children are under protection at a secure location. Standard procedure in a case like this, especially with the potential for additional conspirators still at large. I'd like to see them. That can be arranged. Officer Davis will take you once we've completed the necessary paperwork. Ethan exits the interview room, walking down the hallway where Jack Sullivan waits, looking every one of his 72 years. The events at the lake cabin have taken their toll. They're letting you go. For now, you, Ashtin. Self-defense, they said, clean shoot. Still have to surrender my weapon and stay available for further questioning. Thank you, Jack, for everything. Just finishing what your father started. Jack's weathered hand grips Ethan's shoulder. The real question is, what are you going to do with it all? The truth, the money, the legacy. First, I need to make sure my family is safe. Then I need to understand exactly what my father discovered. There's still something missing. Something that made them target him specifically after all these years. You think there's more than just the financial crimes? I know there is. Martin mentioned the evidence specifically, like there was something beyond the money trail that concerned him. Something in those records my father kept. Jack nods thoughtfully. Harold always played his cards close, even with friends. Whatever he found, it was important enough to get him killed and important enough for him to make sure you found it after he was gone. An officer appears at the end of the hallway, gesturing to Ethan. Mr. Reed, if you'll come with me, I'll take you to see your family now. The safe house is a modest ranch-style home on the outskirts of Preston County. Its unremarkable appearance perfect for its purpose. Inside, Rebecca sits at the kitchen table, her hands wrapped around a mug of untouched coffee. Emma and Ethan Jr. play a board game in the adjacent living room, their quiet voices a stark contrast to the trauma they have experienced. Rebecca looks up as Ethan enters, relief flooding her features. You're okay. I'm okay. Everyone's okay now. Emma abandons the board game, rushing to embrace her father. Ethan Jr. follows more cautiously, but his hug is just as fierce once he reaches Ethan. The bad men can't get us anymore. Right, Dad? Ethan Jr. asks, his voice small but determined. That's right, buddy. The bad men can't hurt us now. Emma always more perceptive studies her father's voice. But it's not completely over, is it? You still have something to do. Ethan smiles gently. You're too smart for your own good, you know that. Yes, there's still something I need to finish, but you don't have to worry about that. The state police officer who escorted Ethan stands by the door giving the family their moment, but maintaining his vigilance. Mr. Reed, Mrs. Blackwood, will need to discuss next steps for your protection. This case has significant implications, and until all participants are in custody, we need to ensure your safety. Rebecca nods. Of course, whatever is necessary. I need to return to Oakridge, Ethan says. There are still answers at the mill, things my father left for me to find. Is that wise, the officer asks. If there are others involved, it's necessary. My father spent 30 years building this case. I need to understand all of it if we're ever going to be truly safe. The officer shifts uncomfortably. Mr. Reed, I can't authorize that. You are under protective custody until the investigation determines the full scope of the conspiracy. I understand your position, officer, but this isn't negotiable. There's evidence at the mill that only I can access. Evidence that could identify everyone involved in this operation, not just Richard and Martin. The officer hesitates, then steps into the hallway to make a call. Ethan turns back to Rebecca and the children. I need you to stay here. Stay safe. I'll be back as soon as I can. Promise, Emma asks, her ocean blue eyes serious beyond her years. Promise, Rebecca rises, moving closer. What aren't you telling us, Ethan? What's really at the mill? Ethan lowers his voice. The complete truth about everything. My father left it all, there protected and hidden, waiting for me to find it. And the money the detective mentioned, $134 million. That's part of it, but not the most important part. The officer returns his expression resigned. Detective Harmon has authorized your return to Oakridge Mill, Mr. Reed, but not alone. I'll accompany you and a forensic team will meet us there. Ethan nods his agreement, though the presence of others will complicate his task. He hugs Emma and Ethan Jr., once more exchanges a meaningful look with Rebecca, and follows the officer out to the waiting cruiser. As they drive toward Oakridge, Ethan's mind returns to the journal entries he hasn't shared with the authorities. Entries from his father's final days referencing something called Operation Nighthawk, a name that appeared in no other documents yet, seems central to Harold's investigation. Whatever Operation Nighthawk was, Harold believed it was the key to everything, and he believed only Ethan could understand its significance. The gravel driveway to Oakridge Mill is now marked with police tape, the area designated an active crime scene. 2 state police vehicles are already parked near the main building, officers securing the perimeter, while forensic technicians prepare their equipment. Detective Harmon stands beside her unmarked sedan, watching as the police cruiser carrying Ethan approaches. Her expression suggests she's still not entirely convinced of Ethan's story despite the evidence already uncovered. Mr. Reed, I understand you believe there's additional evidence here that only you can access. That's correct. My father built a secure facility beneath the mill. It contains his complete investigation, 30 years of evidence gathering. And you didn't think to mention this during our initial interview. I needed to verify certain elements first, ensure the security protocols were still active. Detective Harmon studies him for a moment, then nods. Show us. Ethan leads the detective, 2 officers and a forensic technician around the mill to the southwest corner of the property, where the hidden entrance to the bunker is located. The small stream gurgles peacefully, nature undisturbed by the human drama unfolding around it. The entrance is disguised as part of the landscape, Ethan explains, approaching the large rock near the water's edge. He locates the bronze plate, traces the pattern with his finger, and presses. The click of the mechanism releasing seems louder in the afternoon quiet. The section of stream bank swings inward, revealing the concrete steps leading down to the first security door. Detective Harmon's eyebrows rise in surprise. Your father built this when? Over decades. I suspect he was methodical, patient. This wasn't just a hobby, it was his mission. They descend the steps, Ethan leading the way. At the keypad, he enters the code, 90 to 23 87 16, and the door releases with its familiar hiss. The main workspace, Ethan explains as they enter the first room. Computer systems, file storage, communications equipment. Detective Harmon examines the sophisticated setup with newfound respect. Your father was more than a simple mill operator. He was military intelligence before returning to civilian life. These skills never left him. The forensic technician immediately begins documenting the space, photographing the equipment, the file cabinets, the workstation. One of the officers whistles softly, impressed by the hidden facility's complexity. "And the lower vault?" Detective Harmon asks. Ethan moves to the filing cabinet marked Tax Records 2010-2015, revealing the keypad behind it. Another code entry in the section of floor slides open, revealing the staircase to the lower level. This is where he kept the most sensitive materials, evidence too dangerous to store, even in this secure location. They descend to the lower vault, the reinforced steel door now standing open from Ethan's previous visit. Inside, the command center-like space remains as he left it, though the metal containers that held the banking information are now empty, their contents secured elsewhere by Ethan before he contacted Amanda Collins. Detective Harmon takes in the room, slowly, professionally assessing the technology, the security measures, the evidence preservation systems. "Impressive. Your father built a better intelligence facility than some government operations I've seen. He had motivation and time and funding, apparently." Her tone suggests she's still thinking about the missing millions. Ethan moves to the computer system, powering it up. The monitors flicker to life, displaying the same file structure he'd examined days earlier. But this time he navigates to a folder he hasn't yet explored, labeled simply Nighthawk. "This is what I needed to verify, what my father considered the most important piece of the puzzle." He clicks the folder open. Inside is a single document, a classified military operation report dated April 1989, stamped with the highest security clearances. The operation name is clearly visible at the top: Nighthawk. "What is this?" Detective Harmon asks, leaning closer to read the screen. "The real reason behind the Fort Carson theft. The reason my father was killed." Ethan scrolls through the document, his expression hardening as he absorbs the information. It wasn't just about the money. It was never just about the money. The report details Operation Nighthawk, a covert program to supply advanced American weapons to insurgent groups in multiple global hotspots, bypassing congressional oversight and international arms treaties. The Fort Carson theft wasn't random. It was the first phase of a systematic diversion of military equipment to unofficial American proxy forces around the world. "This goes beyond Richard Reed and Martin Blackwood," Ethan says quietly. "This implicates officials at the highest levels of military and government, people who are still in positions of power today." Detective Harmon's face pales as she reads. This would be the biggest scandal since Iran-Contra. Bigger, maybe. Now you understand why your father was targeted, why Martin was sent to silence him. This wasn't just about protecting a money laundering operation. This was about preventing a national security scandal that would destroy careers, legacies, possibly even administrations. If this is authentic, it is. My father verified everything. Cross-referenced shipments, traced serial numbers, matched them to weapons recovered in conflict zones around the world. The evidence is all here. Ethan opens another file, a list of names. Military officers, defense contractors, government officials, all connected to Operation Nighthawk. Names that would be recognized instantly by anyone following American politics or military affairs. Names that carry weight, influence, and power. "This is why I couldn't reveal everything immediately," Ethan explains. "This information doesn't just put me and my family at risk. It has implications for national security, international relations, ongoing military operations." Detective Harmon straightens, her professional demeanor reasserting itself. "Mr. Reed, I need to contact my superiors immediately. This goes well beyond a local murder investigation or financial crimes." "I understand, but before you make that call, you need to know something else." Ethan takes a deep breath. "My father didn't just document Operation Nighthawk. He found a way to shut it down permanently." "How?" "The money, the $134 million. It wasn't just the proceeds from the Fort Carson theft. It was the operational fund for the entire Nighthawk program. By tracking it, recovering it, and securing it, my father effectively froze their ability to continue the operation. And now you control those funds." "Yes." Detective Harmon's hand moves instinctively toward her weapon. "That's a federal crime, Mr. Reed. Multiple federal crimes. Well, only if the money existed officially in the first place. But it doesn't. Operation Nighthawk was off the books, completely black budget. The funds never existed on any government ledger, were never appropriated by Congress, were never officially allocated to any military program. That's a convenient legal interpretation. It's the truth, and it's why my father felt justified in recovering those funds, not for personal gain, but to stop an illegal operation that had already cost countless lives around the world. The forensic technician and officers have been examining other aspects of the vault, giving Ethan and Detective Harmon a semblance of privacy. But now the technician calls out from across the room, "Detective, you need to see this." They move to where the technician stands before a glass case containing what appears to be a military service medal, the Presidential Unit Citation awarded for extraordinary heroism in military operations against an armed enemy. It's authentic, the technician says, awarded to a Special Forces unit in 1972, Vietnam. Beneath the medal lies a photograph, faded creased, but clearly showing a group of young soldiers standing before a helicopter. One face is circled in faded red ink, a young Harold Reed. "My father never mentioned serving in Vietnam," Ethan says quietly. "His official record shows stateside service during that period." "Because officially he wasn't there," a new voice says from the vault entrance. Ethan turns to see Jack Sullivan standing at the bottom of the stairs, his aged frame silhouetted against the light from above. "Jack, how did you get past the officers outside?" "I know this facility better than anyone except Harold. I helped him build it." Jack steps fully into the vault. There's a secondary entrance through the mill basement, Harold's insurance policy. "You shouldn't be here, Mr. Sullivan," Detective Harmon says firmly. "This is an active investigation site." "I'm aware, Detective, but there are things about Harold Reed that only I know. Things relevant to your investigation." Jack's gaze shifts to the medal in the display case. Things about Operation Nighthawk that even Ethan doesn't know yet. "You knew about Nighthawk?" Ethan asks, a new tension entering his voice. "I was there at the beginning. Vietnam, 1972. A classified operation to supply weapons to groups fighting against North Vietnamese forces outside official military channels. It was successful, too successful. After the war, certain elements within military intelligence saw its potential for application in other theaters. And my father was involved. Harold was a communications specialist attached to our unit. He saw how the operation worked, how the weapons were diverted, how the money flowed. When he later discovered that same pattern at Fort Carson in 1989, he recognized it immediately. Nighthawk hadn't ended with Vietnam. It had evolved, expanded. Detective Harmon interjects. "Mr. Sullivan, are you confessing to involvement in criminal activity?" "I'm providing historical context, Detective. Context that's crucial to understanding why Harold Reed spent 30 years building this case and why powerful people wanted him silenced." Jack moves deeper into the vault, his gaze sweeping over the equipment, the files, the evidence of his friend's lifelong mission. Harold wasn't just gathering evidence of financial crimes. He was documenting a systematic abuse of military power that spanned decades, an operation that began as a wartime necessity but evolved into something darker, a shadow foreign policy accountable to no one. "And William Grant Richards' father was part of this?" Ethan asks. "William was one of the architects. After Vietnam, he helped transition Nighthawk from a regional operation to a global one. The Fort Carson theft was just one of many supply diversions, but it was the one Harold was able to document most thoroughly." Jack's expression grows somber. "What you need to understand, Ethan, is that your father wasn't just a whistleblower. He was a participant who became a whistleblower. His dedication to exposing Nighthawk wasn't just about justice or accountability. It was about redemption." "Redemption for what?" Jack hesitates, then sighs heavily. "In 1972, our unit was involved in an operation that went wrong. Civilians died, women, children. The official record classified them as enemy combatants, but we knew the truth. Harold never forgave himself for his role, even though he was just a communications specialist who never fired a shot. And that's why he spent 30 years building this case to atone for something that happened in Vietnam. Partly, but there's more." Jack moves to the computer system, navigating to a folder Ethan hasn't explored labeled Personal. Inside is a single video file titled Final Confession. "Your father recorded this the day before he died. He asked me to ensure you found it if anything happened to him." Jack clicks the file. Harold Reed's face appears on screen gaunt and pale, but his eyes still burn with determination. He speaks directly to the camera. Ethan, if you're watching this, then I'm gone, and you've discovered the truth about Oakridge Mill, about Operation Nighthawk, about the life I've lived in secret. But there's one more truth you need to know. The hardest one of all. Harold pauses, gathering strength. William Grant wasn't just my commanding officer. He was my friend, my mentor. When I discovered his involvement in the Fort Carson theft, in the continuation of Operation Nighthawk, I didn't immediately report it. I confronted him privately, urged him to shut it down. He refused. Harold's expression hardens. What happened next is something I have carried alone for 30 years. During our confrontation, William threatened to expose my involvement in the Vietnam operation to destroy my reputation, my future, my ability to provide for you and your mother. When he reached for a weapon, I reacted instinctively. William Grant died by my hand that night. Ethan stares at the screen, shock evident in his expression. I covered it up, made it look like a heart attack. The official report noted no signs of foul play. I told myself it was justified, that William was a danger, that he would have killed me, that the operation had to be stopped. But the truth is, I took a man's life, and no justification can erase that sin. Harold leans closer to the camera. Richard never knew the truth about his father's death. He simply stepped into William's role, continuing Nighthawk with Martin Blackwood's help, unaware that he was following in the footsteps of a man I had killed. My guilt over William's death is why I married Eleanor after your mother passed. Why I tried to be a father to Richard and Catherine. It was my attempt at atonement. Harold's eyes fill with unshed tears. The mill, the evidence, the recovered funds. This isn't just your inheritance, Ethan. It's your burden. My final request is that you use it to end Nighthawk completely, to expose those still involved, to ensure that this operation that has caused so much suffering finally ends. But do it with mercy if possible. Remember that even those who seem villainous may believe they're serving a greater good. Harold straightens, composing himself. I'm proud of you, son. Your integrity, your courage, your commitment to what's right. These are the qualities that will guide you through what comes next. I love you. I always have. The video ends, freezing on Harold's face. A man confessing his darkest secret, entrusting his son with both his sin and his redemption. Silence fills the vault. Ethan remains motionless, absorbing his father's confession. The final piece of a puzzle, 30 years in the making. Did you know, he finally asked Jack? I suspected William's death was too convenient, too timely, but Harold never confirmed it until the end. Detective Harmon, who has watched the confession with professional detachment, speaks quietly. This complicates matters significantly. Does it? Ethan turns to her. My father confessed to a killing that happened 30 years ago. A killing that, while morally complex, was arguably self-defense. Meanwhile, we have evidence of an illegal covert operation that has continued for decades, involving current military and government officials responsible for untold suffering around the world. Both matters require investigation, Mr. Reed. I agree, but only one threatens national security as we speak. Only one puts lives at risk right now. Detective Harmon considers this, then nods slowly. I need to make some calls. This goes well beyond my jurisdiction. As she steps away to use her radio, Jack moves closer to Ethan. Your father knew this moment would come. That's why he prepared so thoroughly. Why he left you not just evidence, but resources. The money, the documentation, the connections. Tools you'll need for what comes next. And what exactly is next, Jack? My father spent 30 years building this case, and it cost him his life. What am I supposed to do with it now? Go public-hand it to the authorities. Who can I trust with something this explosive? That's the burden Harold left you, the choice of how to proceed. But you're not alone, Ethan. Amanda Collins is already working on the story. You have financial resources that make you independent. And most importantly, you have what Harold never did, a clean slate. You weren't part of Nighthawk. You have no personal guilt to atone for. Ethan looks around the vault at his father's life work, at the evidence of a conspiracy spanning decades, at the confession that revealed Harold Reed as both hero and sinner. The money, the $134 million, I know what to do with it now. What's that? Use it exactly as my father intended. To stop Nighthawk permanently, but also to help those harmed by it. to fund investigations, support veterans, provide resources to communities destabilized by these illegal operations. Ethan turns to the display case containing his father's presidential unit citation. My father spent his life seeking redemption for actions he couldn't undo. But his real legacy isn't guilt or atonement. It's persistence, determination, the unwavering belief that truth matters no matter how long it takes to uncover.